Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Just on that Brian Thompson shooting, and New York Post and other outlets are reporting, just the news is as well, that he was killed, shot and killed at United Healthcare executive outside that Midtown Manhattan hotel. That's going to be very interesting to see if that was somehow he was targeted, something perhaps professionally, or if that was, or if that was just street crime.
Yeah,
if it was just street crime. Oh boy, you think people are resisting populating America's cities at present? Those are the sorts of crimes, tragedies, and crimes that really send a chill. Anyway. The effort to impose martial law by President Yoon in South Korea.
Didn't last long.
What a catastrophe that was. There's somebody who couldn't read the room. I mean, to be understated about it. But the reaction, I mean, CNN, I mean, MSNBC, it's the same thing. Of course, the Yoon gambit to impose martial law because he didn't appreciate what the opposition party in the legislative branch was doing in Seoul. Now, of course, they're making the Trump comparisons. This is what we fear. Right. So here's Kyung La, who's a CNN. I don't know
Well,
why.
she was at my wedding. She used to work at CBS here. We used to be really tight. Really
Wonderful. Well,
she's from South Korea.
Yes, and she's a part of the problem. And she and Adem Flack on the CNN roundtable making the Trump comparison. All roads lead back to Trump. Nothing can happen in the world, certainly that's negative, that won't somehow be linked to Trump.
I think just in and of itself, in the context of South Korean history, is important. Obviously, we around the table should talk about why this should be an important thing for Americans to pay attention to.
Well, that's what I want to...
Particularly given that Donald Trump is about to be president in a number of weeks, somebody who has said he wants to use the military to go after his own enemies.
That's how we
pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think MJ's points are very, she's right on point here. I mean, they really rolled out the red carpet for Yoon. I mean, he had a state visit last year, had a state dinner with Biden. They issued a declaration, Biden and Yoon. I mean, and now the thought, we're seeing soldiers entering the National Assembly. I mean, you talked about, shockingly, the parallels to January 6th, just the image of a democracy facing this kind of crisis. I think this is something that people are scared about, or Democrats are scared about when they think about Trump's return, because he has used, he's encouraged the use of force to achieve political goals, and or try to achieve a political goal on January 6th, and or at least played with it. And he's talked about now pardoning some of these folks on January 6th, the rioters, insurrectionists, what you want to call them. So, this is on the top of people's mind. And then I think when they see scenes like this, it's just shocking to see a decades-long democracy, one of the closest U.S. allies in the region, in the world, have this go through this kind of convulsion. I think it's just, it's stunned Washington. Capitol Hill, I'm trying to get a response from people. Nobody wants to say anything because they don't know how to deal with it.
Well,
in addition to the pro forma, any autocrat or would-be autocrat doing anything anywhere is a reflection on Trump and January 6th. I mean, in addition to that tired line of argumentation. The thing that's the most telling is that Dem Flack there saying this stunned Washington. They didn't see it coming. Of course they didn't. They stunned Washington. They didn't see it coming. Our close ally, South Korea, we know what's going on. Our intel community, that is beyond reproach, and all this talk about the deep state focused more on domestic politics than on our international interests and our national security.
With 30,000 troops there.
They're shocked by this. Of course they're shocked by this. For more on the topic and related, we're pleased to be joined by Adam Lovinger. He is the Vice President for Strategic Affairs at the Gold Institute for International Strategy, formerly Senior Director for Strategic Assessments at the U.S. National Security Council. His book, The Insider Threat, how the deep state undermines America from within. Adam, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
What's your reaction to both parts of what you just heard us discussing in the context of the tumult in South Korea? That it's Yoon is what Democrats fear they'll get with Trump. He's going to scramble the military and impose his will through force, and then the surprise reportedly that was running through Capitol Hill and the intel community.
Yeah, I think the most interesting part of this discussion on what's happened in South Korea really is the comparison with Trump. As the American people, made very clear in the November election, a lot of Trump's behaviors and ways of governance are really like sort of baked into the American people's decision calculus. And what I really mean by that is that there's all of this, concern that, Trump has said all of these things, all these things that are sort of considered radical by coastal elites, for example, who use the military. What a lot of people, particularly in the chattering classes, and this is not the heartland people of America, or those people who live in what's called flyover country, a lot of what the chattering classes don't really appreciate about Trump is that he's a different type of leader. He's not a typical politician, and his governance style is that he will say lots of things and then see what the reaction is to his comments, and then he'll decide and take action. So I do think that there's this, a lot of people are getting rather tired of this. Everyone's up in arms about, Trump said X, Y, or Z. That's just the way he does business, and then he takes his action. So he's a different type of politician, and we shouldn't apply sort of the normal lens that we apply to other politicians to Trump.
Well, like, for example, we shouldn't believe that Trump is going to invade and take over Canada and make it our 51st state because he was busting Justin Trudeau's chops.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right?
I mean, if you look at, we've had 4 years of Trump governance. He's not a typical politician. And so it's very, very tiring for, I think, the ordinary American to think that, to be told that, just because Trump said X, Y, or Z, he's going to do that. It's just not true. He throws things out there. He tests things out. He does exactly what the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution envisioned, that there is a robust, discussion, a refiner's fire, the best ideas and policies, rise to the surface. The ones that are less so fall to the wayside.
The deep state, the subject of your book, and per your background, it's treated by the establishment in D.C. that even that phrase as sort of conspiratorial and to be dismissed. But you have some examples, substantive examples that suggest that no, there's a real problem there with these massive agencies like the Pentagon engaged in political dirty tricks.
Yeah, I think it's a very important at the outset to, one, define what the deep state is, and also not to paint too broad of a brush. What I define as the deep state is not just ordinary bureaucrats, but genuinely sort of, a cabal of hyper-empowered bureaucrats who are engaged in lawless, often criminal behavior. And because they work as a group, technically it's a criminal conspiracy. And as far as not painting too broad of a brush, not the entire U.S. national security bureaucracy is not the deep state, but there are certain key nodes that have been sort of institutionally captured for the purpose of weaponizing government against ideological and political enemies of these corrupt bureaucrats. And these are often very boring jobs. It's like, the security clearance office, it's sort of the administrative adjudications office, it's certain offices within the general counsel's office, various personnel jobs, very sort of boring, below the radar stuff. But if you want to weaponize government, if you want to take out your political or ideological adversaries, these are the key nodes to really conquer and capture. And I watched, closely how, if one leader of one of these boring but very important jobs, moves on, there's really a very corrupt process, including fraud, to sort of rig these jobs for specially groomed operatives. And this is what, it's actually a rather prevalent problem throughout the U.S. government. The coastal elites, the chattering classes, like I said, they dismiss it because they're very much a part of it. A lot of mainstream media, particularly the New York Times, they depend upon leaks from the deep state, from the national security bureaucracy, for their scoops. And so they will, of course, deny its existence because as soon as they, admit to what they're doing, a lot of those juicy leaks dry up. But ordinary Americans do know it exists. I mean, poll after poll after poll understands that there's a tyrannical, very corrupt cabal of hyper-empowered bureaucrats who are not working on behalf of the American people, but working on behalf of themselves and foreign interests.
And one of those people may be former President Barack Obama?
Very much so. Barack Obama is he was an extremely clever guy. He recognized in 2009, he went on this thing called the Apology Tour, went all over the world, apologized for the United States, and the American people did not respond well to that. Poll after poll really had his popularity plummeting. So instead of promoting his vision of a contrite and diminished America and getting people to buy onto that and ride that bandwagon, when he recognized that the American people wouldn't stand for that, he turned inward and he weaponized a lot of the the insider threat policies and things that had emerged out of the 9/11 experience when we became so concerned about terrorism. And he used those terrorism capabilities of the government and laws and rules, regulations against insiders who sort of threatened his ideological agenda, which was, really to diminish America.
And so, are we talking about like the Intel community people, the 51 who signed the letter calling the Hunter Biden laptop, classic Russian information campaign? Or are we talking about people whose names we don't know, who operate as sort of gatekeepers within these agencies? Is it a combination of figureheads and gatekeepers? Is one more prevalent than the other?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I do think it's a combination as to exactly what proportion of what is which. It's a little bit hard to tell. When I talk about the deep state, what I've seen firsthand and experienced firsthand is really that there's on one hand there are those who are motivated, just by political and ideological agendas, and then there's others who are genuinely compromised by foreign governments. There's a long history that I don't think we probably have enough time on this show to go into that, but a lot of America's enemies realized after the fall of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, that they couldn't really take America on head on, and so they really needed to divide and conquer America from within. So the deep state collaborates with the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians, mostly with the Russians, but also the Chinese, but in different ways, to achieve economic ends, to make money, number one, but also to corrupt this country. And the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians, what they get out of it is dividing in America from within. That we're their principal adversary. What the deep state gets out of it is contracts and money and grants to various sort of deep state connected think tanks, et cetera, that they do business with, but also to destroy one's enemies. There's evidence in 2012 that Obama collaborated with Russia to take out Mitt Romney. I have that in my book. And certainly Hillary Clinton was relying upon Russian disinformation for her Steele dossier that she used against Trump. So there's a real confluence of interest here. And you mentioned the 51 intelligence officers. Plenty of them are quite compromised by America's adversaries, principally the Russians. But it's sort of a complicated stew. But when you look at all of the incentive structures, all the various actors you mentioned are aligned, but just what they're achieving, their strategic objectives are slightly different.
The book is The Insider Threat: How the Deep State Undermines America from Within. The author, Adam Lovinger, Vice President for Strategic Affairs at the Gold Institute for International Strategy, former Senior Director for Strategic Assessments at the NSC. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
I want Christmas. Just give me plain baby Jesus lying in a manger Christmas.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Amy Jacobson and Dan Proft here, and we want to tell you about our 2024 Food for the Poor campaign.
If you've listened to the station and to our show for any length of time, then you already know about Food for the Poor. They are a nonprofit, faith-based organization that provides food, water, medicine, clothing, and life-saving supplies directly to local partners in Latin America and the Caribbean.
We all know how bad the situation is right now in Latin America and the Caribbean.
For many families, the cost of food has simply become prohibitive, leading to sickness and starvation.
The only thing standing between these families and starvation is Food for the Poor. But in order to get this food to those who need it most, Food for the Poor needs your help. Your